How's it going, YouTube? In today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how to delete the EGR cooler and the swirl flaps on a BMW X5 35D with the M57N2 that is unique to the North American delivered cars. Now, before we get started on this, I just want to go over why someone would choose to do something like this to their E70 X5. First of all, the EGR cooler. So the EGR cooler basically introduces exhaust soot and nasty junk into the intake manifold, and this is an attempt to reduce NO and NO2 emissions from the vehicle and basically meet government regulations. The drawback of this, obviously, is that you fill your entire intake manifold with soot. Basically, it mixes with the oil from the positive crankcase ventilation system, and it cakes on there and reduces the diameter and reduces the amount of airflow that you can get into it. Over time, it clogs up and causes poor running and poor performance from the engine. The EGR cooler also is a known weak point of the car. They can crack and leak exhaust fumes into your cabin, and it gets really smelly. They have a little flap that twists and opens and closes the EGR cooler, basically allows the EGR gases to flow through or block it off. And that little fulcrum basically seizes up and no longer works. The springs on those fulcrums also fail, and sometimes the EGR cooler starts to leak coolant and your intake tract will be full of coolant. It's a very known failure point, and basically deleting it prevents this issue from happening again. And then another advantage of having no EGR cooler there, it allows easier access for all sorts of engine accessories on the front of the engine, like your thermostat, water pump, belts, pulleys, the vibration dampener. As for the swirl flaps, this was basically an attempt to increase fuel efficiency on this model. The function of the swirl flaps is basically to block off one of the two intake valves, so you're effectively running off of one intake valve per cylinder on the intake, and BMW thought this would result in better fuel consumption, and most people basically say that this is not true. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever, and in fact, having the swirl flaps in place is a potential issue because they can break and then they get sucked into your intake port and cause you all sorts of engine issues, valves basically being damaged, the head casting, all that stuff. This is a preventative maintenance thing that you're doing. I just want to precursor this as well. With this job, you need to also have your vehicle software, DME software, updated. If you don't do this, you'll basically get stuck in limp mode. So you're effectively kind of doing a little tune on the engine of your own. It's not, you can choose to tune it as well. I didn't. I went to a local shop that basically does this stuff regularly. They just asked me to remove the DME. I handed it to him, he plugs it into his computer, and he just turned off the EGR cooler functions and also allowed the swirl flaps to basically not cause me a check engine when they're disconnected. All right, so let's get into it. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna remove the air box. Got a clamp here. Just gonna unscrew that so it's nice and loose. And here, pull that guy apart and just pull up on this guy. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna remove this bar on the front of the engine. This guy wasn't clipped in. This should have been clipped in. Probably forgot it last time I was working on this car. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to remove the acoustic cover over here. basically crumbling to bits at this point, but I'm not gonna replace this. And here we can see our intake runners. And this is the intake manifold. So here are your injectors. We'll remove this guy as well. This will make our life removing the cooler a little bit easier. And then go from there. This one you always have to really loosen quite a bit to get it off. Brilliant. I'll find that later. And now there's a screw that attaches this intake pipe. It's right there. It's an E10, I believe. We're going to disconnect that. It is a capture bolt, so you don't have to worry about losing it. And then we're going to pull off this intake pipe just out of the way, and we're going to put it to the side. Removing this is kind of tricky, so I'm just going to not do that for now. Okay, we're going to remove this flapper over here from the vacuum system. Now we're going to remove this guy. We don't need this anymore. Take this, unscrew it. And there's a few screws over here. There's one there, and there's one there. We'll need to unscrew those. The coolant connections will also need to be undone at this time. Coolant will spill out, so have a rag handy. Put the rag here. And then just tug. And yeah, coolant will come out. Remove this guy. It's in our way. There's going to be some oil in there. Don't be alarmed. That's perfectly normal. And now we're going to take off this one as well. Actually, we don't technically need to, but that is just an adjustment screw. So at this point now we can get the two screws that are down there. I'll see if I can capture that with my camera. So if we come down here, we can see those are the two screws over there. There's one there, and there should be one more underneath. See that? Yep, T45. As you can see that this guy is now disconnected. And somewhere around here, I think actually this is the one here. We have one more screw that's holding it to the engine block. This is now loose. We'll have to disconnect this. And I believe that this guy was broken or troublesome or something like that. So I gotta figure out how to remove this guy off camera. So it's a tight squeeze, but right here, just kind of go like that. It's going to leak out more coolant. And here we have one more line to disconnect the coolant line. We got that clip out from the bottom coolant line. So let's take this, stuff it down there. And let's just remove this line. Maybe I shouldn't put this thing under so much tension. That'll make it maybe a little bit more difficult. Let's go back. Come on. There we go. Okay, now quickly try and evacuate this guy out before it makes too much of a mess. And of course, none of it gets captured by the rag that was intended to. Okay, but now you can see how much more space we got at the front of this engine. And now is where this delete kit kind of comes in. So we gotta, I think, remove this line And I believe this line also comes off, and then you just essentially just cap them. So now here's the kit's contents. So we've got, for this side of the EGR cooler, we've got basically a block off for this. So this will replace this part here. You've got 2 screws for that. You've got a new gasket, which I believe is for this. We have our coolant blanking elements. We've of course got the race pipe over here. And then we've got the 4 screws and some washers for that. There's just a clip that runs at the bottom. We're going to replace that with the bigger connection, I believe. So this is the replacement for this piece here. All you got to do is just line up the notch at the bottom or top and just press that on. Done. Now we got one more of those connections at the bottom over here. It's underneath, very difficult to get to, but it's essentially the same premise. We're just going to be deleting that line and capping it off. And now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to block off this part. Okay, so we smeared a little bit of Gaba goo on this thing. These are the new bolts. The old bolts are significantly longer, so that's why they include new ones. And now we're just going to go and slap this thing on underneath. So you take this and just put it on the end. So that resolves the issue there. I mean, if you did get the straight through one, that would be better. I did have one, but I snapped it, so we're gonna go with this, and this is gonna be functional enough for now. And now we're gonna remove the intake manifold, and we're going to basically just, it's gonna be easier to take the EGR off like this, plus we need to take it off anyways for the swirl flaps. Make sure you don't lose that. That's on the 3rd screw from the back. You're also going to have at the front here one more nut. So we've undone all of these. So now we have a couple more things to do. We've got this nut over here that we've got to take off. I believe there was a really annoying screw right there that we have to take out. And then there are a few more connections and whatnot that need to be undone. This sensor, for example. There we go. Sensor. And a couple little connections here and there. This guy's going to need to come off. The EGR valve is going to need to come off. And then there's one more connection, I believe, at the back. Maybe. I think back here. A couple things are basically screwed to the manifold itself. And fair warning, at this time, when you remove the manifold, if you've never removed it before, you will have a lot of dirt and gunk in there, and you will probably need to clean this thing out or replace it. If you don't, basically you can risk some carbon getting into your intake valves and damaging stuff. So this needs to be cleaned. This stuff to clean takes several days of messing around. It's going to be a massive challenge for you to do so if you've never done anything like this before. Very difficult to scrub. I would just recommend replacing the manifold. free to come off. I disconnected this cable here. There's also one more 11mm nut of these at the very back behind. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total, plus all of these, plus this guy under here, and you got these cables that we also have to disconnect now. And then I think there still is this guy that's attached to it back here. So this basically just clips on back. Dipstick is now free. Let's see if now we can remove this oily mess. There we go. All right. And there we have it. This little vibration dampener thingy. She's pretty unhappy. I'm gonna have to reuse her. I don't have another one. Now's a good time if you got some spare vacuum line, switch those out because yeah, they're pretty old at this point. Okay. Themselves. This bar came out one by one. There you go, look at how nasty that thing looks. Gross. Alrighty, now let's clean out what we can. So put them here, remove these gaskets to focus. You don't know how it's going to react. You're supposed to change those. I'm going to get you guys today, and I'm going to change them.
One eternity later.
Okay, so as you can see, some cleanup has been done. Mess has been made. I basically just did a really quick clean of the runners. We're gonna now move on to installing the swirl flap blanks. These don't include screws. This is a kit from Amazon that I got. So you gotta roll that gasket on and just shove it in. And then you gotta reuse your original screws. And now repeat for the other 6. replace this seal over here, because they give you a new one. Now we're going to install the throttle, flapper, this one I'll tighten up later, just because this needs to be able to move around, because I don't know what the angle is going to be on that. Last but not least, we have one of the mounts over here, so we're going to transfer this guy over there. She's in. Just got to watch those studs on the way in, right? Not making any contact with the grommets, because then you'll rip them like the one that I had over there. And now basically assembly is the exact opposite of what we just did, so let's get cracking. So to start, just make sure that you can basically get access to all the cables, because the last thing you want to do is basically plug everything in or screw everything down and then realize that you can't access the cable because it's being crushed or blocked or something like that. So. Okay, so video update here. I wanted just to speed the process up a little bit. It's getting late, as usual. It's all on. All the cables and screws and bolts and all that stuff are attached. Fan, I took that out just because I dropped something down in here, so that's now back in. And now we're going to proceed to just putting the intake tract and the foam back on, and we're going to be ready for first startup. She's all assembled at this point, but before we start it up, we're missing a critical thing. Don't forget to check your coolant level, because we lost a lot of it. Below minimum, see? So top it off, and then you can start it up and bleed it. Got the fan on max, or sorry, the fan on minimum and the heat on max, just to bleed it out. So it's been a few weeks now with this EGR delete kit and the swirl flap delete, and I gotta say I'm pretty happy with the car. Definitely some elements of the driving experience have changed. The car definitely has a coarser idle sound. It's more like a diesel truck now. You can hear each individual fire a little bit more vividly. It's not as muffled as before. Definitely a positive thing with this kit. I do feel a little bit more of a direct throttle response. When I tip into the throttle, I just feel that the car pulls a little bit more immediately than before, and there's perhaps a slight increase in power as the fuel and air can mix more quickly, more directly. They don't have as long of a wait time to fire, so I could see how it makes a little bit more power. And the other indirect benefit that I got was actually updating my software. The software on this car, I think, was really old. I think it was like 2011 or 2012. Like, basically, like, it was updated only once when the car was basically brand new and never again. So 12-year-old software, it's going to give some problems, right? And you'd be surprised, like, if you're having weird issues with your X5 that are kind of unexplainable, definitely consider updating your software. The guy that did my software on my car, he said that yeah, it can cause so many issues, and my car always had like a blue smoke on cold start issue, and it's not that it's gone, but it's definitely minimized. The amount of smoke that comes out on a cold start is, I would say, about half to a third compared to what it used to be, and the exhaust smells better. Even in the cabin, actually, I noticed that the air quality is, like, sometimes you'd be sitting in traffic and you'd smell like heavy diesel fume smell. Even on a cold start, you know, when you start driving it, you could always smell a little bit of diesel emissions in your cabin. Now that's gone. I don't smell it at all, which is really nice. If you made it this far in the video, I really want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. When I was looking for information, there was just a lot of forums out there, and there was lots of information in that format, but sometimes it's nice to also have a video format. So you're welcome, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.